Welcome back, everyone. Perfect. Thank you so much for being here for our third Zoom of the day. So keep up the good energy. It was really nice to see you this morning and this lunchtime too for the Q&A. Like now we have this workshop with Christine Falco. It's in collaboration with INIS, like the cinema school here in Montreal. And it will be on the art of pitch. So it will be also like on the oral version of the pitch, but also on the written version of the pitch, like how to present your project. So I will give Christine already like the time, so and she will share a keynote with you guys so you can take notes and everything. So I think it will be really interesting. So I introduce you, Christine Falco from INIS in that case, but she's the producer too and everything. So thank you, Christine, for being with us.
Thanks, Emily. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm happy to discuss the art of the pitch with you today. I'll already share my, my keynote because everything is in it, basically. So I'll just go and get it. Okay, I hope it works. Do you see the pitch, everyone? The document? Yeah? Okay, perfect. So yeah, today is the art of the pitch. I'll be speaking for about half an hour, giving you the information that is in the keynote, and then we'll open it up to questions. So here we go with that. I'll introduce myself a little bit. I'm a film producer here in Montreal. I've been producing films for almost 20 years. I do feature films, short films, documentaries, and I also do digital works that include virtual reality, augmented reality. So we're very diversified in what we do. Some of my recent films are there in the keynote. Ziva Postek, the editor behind the film Shoah, is our most recent film. It's a documentary about this film editor. The Cyclotron is our most recent feature film that was screened a few years ago at the Festival du Nouveau Cinéma. So that's why I chose it, because it has a link with the festival. And I've been a trainer in film production for more than 15 years, and I also teach at INIS since 2009. I teach mostly to film producers about budget, but also about the art of the pitch. So that's what we're going to talk about today. What I'm going to be presenting today can apply to an oral pitch in front of an audience, or when you're one-on-one with people that you're trying to convince to get on board your project. But it also applies when you have a written proposal to write, basically. I forgot to ask Emily, maybe at the end of the workshop, I can send you a PDF of the keynote, and we can share it with you guys, so you don't have to write everything that's written there, because there's a lot of stuff written. So how does a typical pitch go? Basically, we almost always include the same elements. May it be a written document, or a 5-minute pitch, or a 20-minute pitch in front of an audience. Usually we start by introducing the team members, which are usually 2 or 3 people that are there: the producer, the writer, and the director. And each take a few seconds to introduce themselves, say what they've done, maybe a bit about their experience, if they've done the films before the film that they're pitching. Then we go into a summary in a few sentences of the story of the film and the theme of the film. And I would also add what is the message that you're trying to convey with this film. I don't like to use the word message, but what you're trying to express basically with this film that you're pitching, basically. Then we go into saying how the story unfolds. So at the beginning, the middle, and the end. It's always important to tell the whole story, of course, in a few sentences, as short as possible, depending on the time that you have or the space that you have to write in the document. Sometimes the financial partners will say you have 1 page to write the storyline, for example. So you have to fit into these guidelines that the institutions will give you, the funding bodies, basically. So it's important also to tell the end of the story. Sometimes we try to keep it, maybe to try to add a bit of mystery to our pitch, and, you know, to try to get them to ask us questions after. But it's really preferable to present the whole story from the beginning to the end, because it's not a marketing tool, you know, pitching. It's more to try to convince people to get on board your project, and they have to know what it's about, and they have to know what goes on in the story or in the documentary, the project that you have. Then after that, we go into the narrative and cinematographic intentions. Why are you making this film? Where did you get the idea? Very often, that's one of the questions that people will ask you is, where did you get this idea and why do you want to make this film? So these two questions are basically your narrative intentions, and your cinematographic intentions is really your approach, your visual and sound approach to your film. You know, how you're going to film your film, for example. Is it going to be like very slow or very fast, with a very rhythmic editing, or is it going to be slower? So what kind of music do you envision? What kind of sound do you imagine for your film? So that, you know, you give the broad ideas around those subjects. And then you go into the production strategy, and that's usually in an oral pitch. That's usually the producer that takes on this section of the pitch. What are the challenges in the story, in the film that you want to make? Is it a hard to get location, for example, or is it a very specific type of casting in the film, for example? And what are the solutions? It's the one thing to say what are the difficulties or the challenges, but also try to suggest what solutions you have to try to make those challenges work and be able to make the film that you want to make. And you also talk a bit about financing, maybe the challenges there as well, where you try to get money to make this film, who you're going to approach. So that's usually the producer who takes this part of the pitch, might it be oral or written. Usually the producer will write a letter explaining those different elements that would be added to the applications that we send out to Téléfilm Canada, for example, or the Canada Media Fund, or other funding partners, basically. We also touch on the distribution potential of the film, because it's one thing to make the film, but we're also interested to know what will be the life of this film once it's done. Is it a film that will be really targeted for festivals in the international market, for example? Or is it a film that will be released in theaters? Or will it be a film that will be good for the streaming platforms, for example, like Crave and Netflix and those partners that we have now in our ecosystem? So it's basically saying what you envision as the potential career of the film. And that again is the producer who will usually take this part of the pitch. Everything that is not creative basically is said or written by the producer, and all the creative elements, the storyline, the intentions, cinematographic and narrative, are usually shared between the writer and the director, depending on what it is exactly. And usually we conclude our pitch with the reason for the pitch, basically, because when we're pitching, there's always a reason for it. You know, we're not just pitching like this for the fun of it. So what's the reason and what are we asking for? So that really depends on who is sitting in front of us, basically. If you're in a film market, for example, and that you have one-on-one sessions with different broadcasters or distributors or funding partners, you will not present your pitch in the same way necessarily, because it really depends. With a funding partner, you want to convince them about the quality of your story and the feasibility of your project, and try to convince them to get involved financially in your project. If it's a distributor, you try to envision with them the potential career, like I said earlier, the film might have in Canada, but also internationally. I think we have to open to more than Canada with films these days. We have to look at the international market and how we can place our film in that ecosystem, basically. So it's always very important to know the reason of your pitch. Sometimes you're pitching, you're at a cocktail party during a festival, and there's an actor there that you're thinking about for your film. So you go up to them and you're pitching to them. So you're trying to convince them to maybe read your script, and maybe if they're interested, they will get to participate in it. So you really adapt your pitch according to who you're pitching to, basically. But it's always good to have sort of the, how can I say, the general pitch, you know, that includes everything. And then we take the elements that are important according to who we are speaking to. The next slide here is about the 5 W's. I'll just take a quick... I wrote the 5 W's because it will help you to prepare your pitch and include all the information that you will need to prepare it. So the 5 W's are the 5 questions usually that we have to answer during a pitch. What, who, why, when, and where. And I give you for each ideas of what these W's are all about. Like what usually is the first question that we have to answer. What is it? What is this film? What is it about? So the subject of the film, the plot, the theme, the genre. It's always very important. Is it a comedy, a horror film, a drama, a documentary? And the format. Is it a short film, a feature film, a digital VR work, for example? So that's what is all about. And then we have who. So who is involved in this project? Usually the team, like I said, the writer, director, producer, but also actors. Sometimes casting is a strong element in a project. So you have to put that forward. And I put the director also because the director is an important selling point when you're trying to pitch a project. Even though it's somebody that's starting out that only did student films, for example, because everybody who can get involved potentially in your project, maybe an actor, a financier, a distributor, will always ask the question, who is the director and what has this person done? And we want to see the previous films, even though they're student films. So you have to pitch your director as well, their experience and what they've done, and have previous films help to understand the new project, because it's the same type of film, for example, similar subject, similar visual approach. So, you know, if you can use your previous work to try to sell yourself, I would say definitely go that way, because it's very important when you try to convince, especially financiers, to get in your project, because they get a lot of projects at each application date, you know, just in feature films, like here in Quebec at SODEC, our provincial partner. At each application date, they get around 75 projects, and they will take maybe 10, 12, if we're lucky, if there's enough money going around. So it's not that much. So you have to be really convincing with your project, but also your director has to be a convincing element in your pitch, basically. Why it touches on intentions. So what are the writing and production intentions? why this film, like I said, where did the idea come from? What are you trying to express through this film? And what type of film are you writing? Why are you choosing to make it a comedy, for example? Why not a drama and you do a comedy instead? So all these choices that you make when you're writing a project have to be explained in the documents that you will give to funding agencies when you're trying to apply for funding. But also it will help you to connect with the people you're pitching to as well, because if they know where you're coming from with this story. For example, you're making a documentary about your grandmother because she has an extraordinary life experience that you want to share. That will connect automatically very often with the people that are listening to you, because we all have families, we all have extraordinary people in our families. So, you try to connect with the personal aspect of why you're making this film, because people want to know that. And so that's very important to include that in the pitch, even though if you think maybe it's too personal, or maybe I don't want to go that way, you have to go that way, because people want to know what's inside you, what's the passion in you, and why does this specific project passionate you so much, that you want to make a film about it. Why, what are you looking for, what you want to achieve with this pitch? That goes back to the reason of the pitch. Are you trying to get some money? Are you trying to get a distributor, an actor, a producer? Maybe you don't have a producer and you want to interest one that will accompany you in the making of this film. So it's important to know why you are preparing this pitch. Usually that's another question you get very often. People will ask you, where are you at in your project? Are you very early in the development? Do you have the script and now you want to go for production funding, for example? So know where you're at and when you think you will be shooting the film. Even though it's uncertain when you're pitching at this specific point, you say, oh, I would like to shoot in 2021, but that will depend if you get the money in time. But try to be as honest as possible. If you're in development and you say, I think it's going to be in 2021, people are aware that sometimes funding takes a certain time. You apply, you get a no, you have to reapply again. So months pass by and you have to postpone your shoot because of that. But that's a very normal situation. Everybody who works in film as this reality to work with. And also know when you think you're going to release the film. So if you say, for example, we're shooting in 2021, it will be released sometime in 2022, for example, in spring, in time for the big festivals during the fall, for example. So, try to build a schedule for your project, even though you know that it will probably be postponed, it will move in time. But when people ask you, have an answer ready, so that they know that you're conscious that when the big steps will take place, basically. And the last W is where. So where is this film happening? Where are you filming? Where are you doing your post-production, if you know? It can be a city, but it also can be a specific supplier. I want to work with this company because I've made other films with them before and it worked out very well. The locations in the story of the film can be important as well, especially if you're filming outside Canada. For example, you're making a documentary that takes place in India and Pakistan, for the subject is related to that. So they'll want to know, and they'll have questions too of how you're going to shoot there. Do you know what it takes to shoot there, for example? So they will ask maybe a bit of questions if you talk about your story locations, and be prepared to be able to answer, even if you don't have all the answers now because you're in development, for example, and you're researching all of this, but still have ideas about it for when people have questions. And also distribution locations, usually it's worldwide. You know, we want our films to go in festivals all around the world, but that's fine. But for other things, for example, for like broadcasting or theatrical releases, usually it's in your country that it takes place. So do you think you'll be able to release it theatrically in Montreal, for example? Yes, because I have a distributor who's interested, and he'll help us make that happen, basically. So these are just pointers on how to answer the 5 W's that will help you prepare the big pitch, the whole pitch that will answer all of these things. Not necessarily in this order. You will find the natural order for your pitch when you're writing it, when you're preparing it. But know that all these elements, if they apply, obviously should be included. Some tips that I've already mentioned, some of them a little bit. It's very important to know the reason for your pitch and to adapt it according to who you're speaking to, like financiers, distributors, other partners. Sometimes we want to go get partners that will supply equipment, for example, or services of some kind for post-production or things like that. So we always adapt our pitch for them. Collaborators could be people that are working on the film, like crew. Sometimes we want to interest a director of photography that has a lot of experience to our project, for example. So we have to prepare a speech for them. That might include maybe technical information, like I would like to film my film with this specific camera. What do you think? It can engage in a conversation. Basically, it's to give enough information for people to want to read your script, and to try to get a conversation with you going as well to further, you know, the script is one thing, but to further the discussion on other aspects of the project as well. So that's a good way to open it, basically. At the start of the pitch, try to grab the attention of your audience with a strong image from your project. Sometimes there's a scene in your script that's very strong, very powerful. Maybe that's something that you can open your pitch with sometimes. Or maybe you're making a documentary about a subject and you want to put the people that you're talking to in the situation of your protagonists in the documentary. For example, I'm producing right now a documentary about writers around the world who are dissidents, who had to leave their country very often to be able to continue to write and to express themselves about what is the political situation in their country. And the pitch that we developed with the writer-director of this project, we basically took one of our protagonists and told in a few sentences their life, and it was the political people in their country tried to kill them, basically, and they managed to run away, to survive first of all the attack. It was with a machete. It was very intense. They survived the attack, and eventually they moved to a country in Europe where they are safe now and can continue to write. So imagine, you know, being attacked by a machete just for expressing your ideas, you know. So we were trying to open our pitch with questions like that to put people in the place of these people, these protagonists that we have in our film, to try to make them connect to our subject, so that if, you know, they can feel, wow, yeah, we're in a country where we're free to express ourselves here, and there are people around the world who get killed for that. So it was a way to try to engage with the audience very quickly and to explain the subject of the film very quickly and get the emotional aspect of it, to try to make it come across for our audience. It did work quite well, actually. So I invite you to do that, to try to open with something that will mark people, and that they will maybe remember once maybe they meet one-on-one with you after your public pitch, for example. Always have a log line. That's very practical. It's a one-sentence summary of your project and the idea behind it, like the message, like I said earlier. And I put an example here from the movie Billy Elliot. I don't know if you've seen this film, but I thought the log line was quite good for this one. While attracted to ballet, a young man is forced by his father to do boxing. So we immediately understand the conflict within this young man, you know, that he wants to do ballet, but he has to do boxing, and the conflict with his father as well, and the tension that will come from it. And eventually they will reconcile, and the young man will finally get to do what he wants to do. So I thought that with one sentence, we really grasp what the film is about, the story, but also the conflict that is between the characters, and maybe the style of the film as well. With this subject, we understand that we're not in a comedy, we're more in a drama. So, you know, with few words, we get a very good idea of what this project is all about. So that's very practical. The log line is very practical when sometimes you're at a party and you see, oh, there's this woman from Téléfilm Canada. I've been wanting to meet her for so long, and now she's having wine with people, and maybe I can just try to get into her circle and pitch my project. So the log line is very practical because you won't have a lot of time to speak with the woman from Téléfilm Canada. She has a lot of people coming to her wanting to talk to her about their project as well. So if you can get in there and try to speak with her maybe a minute or two, that's super good. But you need a very, very short pitch to do that. So if she gets interested by your story, maybe she will say, who are you? What's your name? So you can maybe try to chat further with her. But the log line is like the shortcut for meetings that happen on the spot that you have not necessarily planned. I remember a few years ago, I was in Halifax, the film market there. And there was the New York producer, Christine Falco. She's very famous in the independent film world. And she was giving a workshop there. And after her workshop that I attended, I got into the elevator to go back to my hotel room. It was all in the hotel. And she was there and in the elevator with me, but I was so intimidated that I didn't say anything. But there was another woman there that started talking to her, but she didn't have a log line. She had like pages and pages of things to say to Christine Falco. And I think that she got really tired of this woman pitching her. You know, she didn't want to be pitched. She had just given a workshop. She was tired. She was probably going back to her hotel room. And the woman was not catching on that she was bothering her, basically. So Christine Falco, I think when the doors opened, I don't think it was even her floor. She just got out of the elevator. So you don't want to do that. You have to, like we say, try to read the room. You know, is this a good moment to go to this person? You'll feel it usually. If they try to, you know, get rid of you, or they leave, or they're like not listening to you, then it's obviously not a right time to do it. But sometimes you have to take the opportunity, to seize the opportunity, if I can say. And I think that's what the other woman was trying to do, but obviously she didn't have the right approach. So I was like, oh my God, I was watching. I was like, that's the course on what not to do. So I was happy I didn't say any word while I was in the elevator. Always emphasize the project's selling points. Is it the director? It's a young director. It's their first feature film. They've won awards with previous films that they've done. They had quite success in festivals, for example. Maybe it's an actor that has confirmed to play in your film, and it's a famous person, well-known. It's an asset for your project. If the project already has financing, for example, and you're looking to complete the financing with one or a few more partners, that's an asset as well. So at the point you're at when you're pitching your project, always look at what you have, you know, in your project, and what are the strong elements, and try to put those forward in your pitch. Because, you know, financiers, for example, will be happy to know that you already have some money to make the film. So it means that there's interest in the market for it. And, oh, this actor is playing in it. Cool, you know. So for a distributor, for example, that's very good, because they can do a marketing campaign around that actor when they release the film. So, you know, always be on the lookout for what are your assets, basically, in your project. Always address also the feasibility challenges, the difficulties that are related to making the film, because there always are some, you know, some bigger, some smaller, and also bring the solutions, because when people read your project, or sometimes they only listen to you for a few minutes, according to what you're telling them, they will say, oh, how will you shoot this? For example, it's a film that takes place in the river, in the woods, you know, it takes place in the water for a big part of the story, for example. So they will say, how will you shoot this? Well, what will be the security measures, for example? You know, they will have questions to make sure that you're aware of the difficulties of your project and that you're reflecting on it, and that you already have potential solutions in order to make it happen. So it's not a bad thing to address these things. It's better to talk about them from the get-go, and not leave it for questions, for example. You know, you want to seem like you're prepared and that you're very aware and that you know your project very well. And the last element is the visual presentation. In some contexts, it's not possible to add a visual element, especially if you're in one-on-one meetings in film markets, for example. Usually these things are like speed dating. You have 15, 20 minutes to discuss with someone, and usually it's in a room where there are many tables with many people pitching to other people. So these rooms usually are very noisy, and you have only 15, 20 minutes. It seems long, but it's very short when you're discussing your project with someone. So if you bring in your iPad, for example, we have a demo, we have a trailer, we have images that we've already shot. I would say, I know that some people do it, you know, and they present their stuff live there during the meetings. But I would say use the meeting instead to talk and to create the connection with the people you're talking to try to start a relationship with them. And if they have interest, you can follow up after by email. When you send your script, for example, you can send a link to your demo or the images that you wanted to show them. They can look at it in a more comfortable disposition. You know, they'll be in their office, they'll be at their home, wherever they'll be looking at it. But anyways, that's my view on it. Some would disagree, but by experience, by trying to show something to people and they're listening and they're barely hearing because it's so noisy around them, and they're distracted, you know, during those meetings usually. So it's not the best thing, but sometimes you're in a pitch in front of an audience. For example, a few years ago, I did one at the Fantasia Film Festival here in Montreal. I was pitching with the director, and we had a keynote that accompanied our pitch. So that's perfect. And we had the images that were inspiring for us for the film. We had the trailer from a previous film that we had done that we showed an excerpt of. So there are really contexts where the visual presentation becomes really important. And obviously, when you submit for funding at Téléfilm Canada or Canada Council or wherever you're submitting, it's always good to have visuals that will accompany the text that you will be sending them. The demo, again, it can be photos, it can be a mood board, it can be a presentation document, you know, that includes the information, but also pictures and links maybe to films that have inspired you, for example. It's always good to give examples coming from other films sometimes, especially when you're talking about your visual treatment of your film. You can certainly go and grab images in other films and say, this is the type of lighting that I would imagine for my film. This is how I would frame my images, etc., etc. So it's always good to have those things. Especially in documentary, I would say these days, if you're applying for production, you need a demo. So you need, during your development phase, to shoot a little bit of images with your protagonists and try to edit a demo that does not give an idea of the whole film, because with a 5-minute demo, it's very hard to do. But introduce your characters, for example, and where they live or where the action takes place, just to give an idea of the tone and the feel of the film, and also to show that to the financiers that your protagonists are good in front of the camera, because sometimes we have we have experts and people that we interview for our films, but they don't for some reason they don't come across very well on screen. So that's a way to test it as well, and if they're convincing, they'll be convincing also for the financiers, basically. So that was a bit my presentation about the pitch. I don't know if you have questions or things that you would like to further discuss.
Thank you so much, Christine. First of all, I will ask one question. Like, can you? I know you read, like, I'm sure, lots of pitches. So can you maybe tell us like things to not do, like mistakes that you see really often by young filmmaker that you're like, oh no, stop doing that, like, or express this more or focus on that more. So maybe like you have some guidelines of things not to do.
I would say try not to be too long. Sometimes people write and write and write. I'm not talking about the script, because the script has its natural length, but everything that comes around it. You know, the cinematic treatment and things like that. Try to be as concise as possible, because the people you're talking to or you're writing to are busy, and they don't have a lot of time to read. So if you can, usually what I like to receive when somebody wants to approach me with a project that they want me to produce, I don't ask for the script from the get-go. I ask if they have like a pitch, you know, 4 or 5 page document that summarizes the story, everything that I told you about. So if I have interest in after reading that, then I'll ask for the script and the other elements. But people, you tend to send you everything. Like, never send your script to someone who didn't ask it, you know, because you have copyright on this, and you don't want people to take your ideas and make their own film with it. So don't just spread it out like that, sending it to the 100 producers that are members of the Producers Association. Don't do that. Take the approach of, you know, I have this idea, I would like to send it to you, and the producer will say, well, yeah, send me, if you have 2, 3 pages, 4, 5 pages to read, I'll read that, and I'll get back to you if I want to read more, you know. That's for sure. And like I was saying with the example with Christine Vachon, when we're in a social situation, don't...
read the room.
Read the room, exactly. Don't impose yourself, and try to see if are you bothering this person, or is this person happy to talk with you? So try to, reading the room is really, really important. Yeah.
It's I will do like some links with what we've said this morning with the distributor. Also, like when you're pitching to some people, financier, distributor, like maybe a producer, it's still like the best friend thing that Jason said, like you want to interact with this person and you want to work with it. So you have to create a relationship. So if you don't feel like speaking to this person, don't go either. Like,
exactly.
You want to make a real connection, because you'll work with these people for a long time too. So like,
yeah, it's like a marriage, huh? When a creative, like a writer, director starts working with a producer, for example, it's really a marriage that will last a few years, because some projects take some time to get off the ground and finally get to the shooting stage. Yeah, so I would say focus. It's important to let them know that you have a project that you would like to present to them, but try to focus on building the relationship, the friendship, the professional friendship, because that's what counts, you know. And you'll be, maybe in the course of your career, you'll be meeting different producers, different distributors, and there's some that you will like more than others. And you find that out if you take the time to talk with them. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because like so many people are saying like, I'm doing cinema for my movie family. So you're building like families of work. Like, so it's really important, like as we said, for distributor, but also like, I know some of you work alone, like in animation and everything, but also you have to find your collaborator to help you on sound. And like, it's everything, like we're speaking at large, but as for the pitch or distribution or everything, you have to have people help you too, so it can like make your film better too, and like well distributed and more effectively pitched. Or like if you don't feel like pitching, maybe your producer will be more better than you to do it. Like, so use your force, like and your what you're
exactly. And when you're pitching in public, for example, it's always good that you're 2 or 3, you know, on stage, because one person can be like very nervous and sort of freeze or forget what they're supposed to say. Because that's another thing, when you're pitching in public, don't have your papers or your little cards like this, you know, try to learn it by heart and because we want to see again your passion. And if you're reading your document, it's not that we won't necessarily see your passion, but we'll have the question, do they really know their project this well, or just because they're nervous? You know, sometimes it's just that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and pitching, it's because you need help, you need partners, you need collaborators. So it's not like you're asking for charity or anything. You're looking for partners. You're looking to get these people on board and elevate, and everybody gets to try to transmit your passion for your projects to all the people that you want to get involved in it.
Mm-hmm. And to complete on what you're saying, like when you are watching a pitch, or when you're even like you're going to any form of creative production, like you don't remember like, oh, this person missed this point. Like if the person has his list and doing everything, you don't know the points. So if you forget something, it's not like the end of the world. We would prefer to see someone that is passionate and like give us the desire to see the project like come to life, than like, oh, I forgot to speak about the framing of this. Like it's more interesting to be engaged with your project than like to do your grocery list.
Yeah, and it happens to everybody, you know, like last year I was pitching a project, and we were in front of an audience, and I was pitching with my partner, and she knew everything by heart. She was super good. And I started really good in my portion of the pitch. And then I forgot, I knew there was a paragraph there, and I just could not remember what it was. So I just said, you know, fuck it, sorry. And I just moved on to the next paragraph. And when I finished, I remembered it at that time, but it was too late. It was okay, you know, but we had discussions after with people who were there, and we were able to give this information that I had forgotten. So it happens to everybody, you know. Sometimes we're more nervous than others, or we're tired, or, you know, it's normal. We're human beings. We're not robots pitching projects.
Yeah, you never know. Thank you, Christine. So do you have some question, guys, like maybe on your particular project, of how to approach person to pitch, or even like how to talk to a producer? Like, so do someone have a question? Cecilia?
Yes, hi. You were talking about having demos and having samples of your work to show, that maybe you can present mood boards or stuff like that. And I tend to use storyboards when I script my things. Is it a thing? Is it common to use storyboards to present your ideas, to put images on your concept?
Do you do animation?
Yeah, I usually do that.
Yeah. I think that for animated films, it's the best way to go, you know, because it's very concrete examples of what you want to do in your project. So that's perfect. The more important thing is that what you are submitting as visuals have to be very close to what you want to do. So if you're doing an animated film, yeah, storyboards is perfect, actually. And they will be required, actually. I'm thinking about Téléfilm or SODEC, for example, when they ask for it, not the whole thing, the whole storyboard, but excerpts of it when you apply for production funding.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Other questions? Olivier? Yeah, open your
mouth. Yeah. I was wondering, I know there's like, other than meeting people at festivals and elevators and stuff like that, I think il y a des activités de maillage. I don't know how to say it in English.
Yeah.
Do you know the names of
networking events? Yeah.
Do you have specific names, like, to give us cues like that we could follow up and look for next projects?
For these networking events?
Yeah, like
I know
there's... Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I know that SODEC here in Quebec organizes them. They're linked to their programme for création émergente for the young creators here in Quebec. And there's 2 application dates. So I guess they do it maybe 1 month or 2 months before the application date. But they usually announce it on their website. As for other types of networking events like this, maybe in festivals, that's also possible that they have this type of event as well.
Yeah, and be sure to subscribe to the newsletter of like the financier and the grant, and like that, you know, like when's the deadline and everything. Like SODEC always put it in their newsletter, so you'll know that there's a networking event that is coming too. So if you have subscribed to Téléfilm in Canada, SODEC, Canada Council, like all the grant and the private also, like they are organizing things. And the industry section of festival, like if you subscribe to all these these newsletters, you'll know. It's really, they are advertising it.
But most of them now are creating events or situations for the the young and upcoming filmmakers. So yeah, like you say, the industry part of festivals, they all have a component for young filmmakers. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Cecilia, yeah?
It's not a question. It's just that I know that cinemas also tend to organize events, especially independent cinemas, depending on your theater, depending on your city. I know that in Sherbrooke we have one independent cinema who likes to organize Q&As with film producers, with directors, with film premieres. So it's also great events to meet people of the industry. So depending on where you are and what's like available in your location, there are really cool film premieres.
Montreal have full things.
Yeah, we're lucky for that. So it's also a thing that we can use as networking.
Is it La Maison du Cinéma?
Yes.
I've done Q&As there before.
Yeah, it's such a wonderful place.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Other question, guys? Joseph?
Yeah, thank you. I was wondering something about pitching in another country, because here in Colombia there are no many public foundations for short films or films either. So right now I'm working on my thesis and I'm planning to go to Germany next year, but I haven't decided yet if it's a good idea to pitch to some international producers, because I don't know what implications are going to be. I don't know if, Christine, maybe you could mention us a little bit about that.
Well, usually when we go into international markets, it's because for the projects that we're submitting there or pitching there, we're looking for partners in specific countries. We're looking to do co-productions basically with other countries, because in the storyline, for example, there are elements. I don't know, I'm producing a film, for example, it's from a Quebec writer, but the action takes place in France because a woman in Quebec is traveling to France because everything is wrong in her life and she's trying to start fresh in France. So that's a natural co-production, because there are elements that take place in Quebec and elements that take place in France. So you have to look into your topic if there's really elements that could interest producers from foreign countries, because co-productions are not just about money or sharing talent. It's really in the content of the films that there has to be something there. Documentaries.
Especially in short, you don't do co-production.
Yeah. But there have been a few, the co-productions. But it has to be in the storyline. There has to be something in the storyline. But it's also, if you don't necessarily have a project that's, could work as a co-production, you can certainly participate in these events, the industry events, just to network and get to know people, because one day maybe you'll have a project that takes place part in Germany, and you'll say, a few years ago I met these producers, these guys there, so I can contact them and try to keep in touch a little bit with them in between the two times. But it's either because you have something in your story that calls for co-production, or that you want to get yourself known more, and you want to network and make contacts.
Thank you. Other questions, guys? Nope. Okay. So we'll finish on that. I don't know if Christine, you have like the a little like ending word or something that you want to share with us.
Well, I thank you for your time, for listening. Like I said, we'll share the keynote with you. And maybe one thing I can say to finish, because I haven't said it yet, is just try to, you know, if you're pitching, especially if you're in a public situation, just be yourself, you know, speak in your way of speaking usually. Try to be calm, you know, not too nervous. I know it's nerve-wracking, especially the first times we do these things, but I would say be yourself, because once again, you're selling your project, but you're also selling yourself, and people will want to get to know you and get to know the passion that you have for film and for your project specifically.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Christine, for being here with us and to give us your knowledge on all of that. So it was really appreciated, I think.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
So thank you so much, guys. It's the end of our second day, so you can take a nap and be ready for tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll start back at 10 a.m. with a really nice panel and discussion with Sophie Dupuis on how to direct actors in fiction cinema and her cinema. So it will be really interesting to speak with her. So don't be late. It will be really awesome. And after we'll have the second Q&A with the second program of competition. And at the end of the day, we'll have the closing Zoom, and maybe we'll have someone from Netflix with us. So be sure to be there if you have questions for Netflix. And that will be pretty much it. And tomorrow night at 8 p.m., be ready to celebrate, because it will be the Short Film Award ceremony online at 8 p.m. So be on Facebook Live and on YouTube Live. So you'll see the winner, and there will be one of you guys that will win something. So yeah. So have a nice day, and see you tomorrow. And thanks, Christine, again for being with us this afternoon.
Thanks a lot. Take care.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.